Hey, welcome back to the Natural English Podcast. This is Alex here, and I am sitting with Sarah.
Hi, everyone. It is really nice to be with you. Thanks for listening, wherever you are.
Yeah, wherever you are right now. Maybe you are on a train, or driving to work. Maybe you are cooking, or just lying on the sofa. If you can, just notice for a second. How are you feeling today? A bit tired, focused, relaxed?
And if you like, you can even answer out loud. Just a simple, I am okay, or I am exhausted today. It is good speaking practice already.
So, in this episode, we are going to talk about books, your reading habits, and the books you enjoy. But first, I have a little listening challenge for you.
Yeah, this will keep your ears awake. So listen carefully for one expression. The word is page turner. Page turner.
A page turner is our first new phrase today. Very simply, it means a book that is so exciting, you cannot stop reading. You keep turning the pages. Later, Sarah will call one book a real page turner. Your job is to notice. What kind of book does she call a page turner?
So just keep that in your mind. Page turner. You can even whisper it now. Page turner.
And there is one more thing to listen for. Today, listen to how we talk about how often we read and what we are reading now. Phrases like, I tend to read, or I usually read before bed.
You do not have to remember everything. Just relax. Follow the conversation and notice any phrases you might want to copy later.
All right, let us jump in. Sarah, are you reading anything at the moment? Like right now, this week?
Yeah, I am. I am reading a crime novel at the moment. It is a mystery, kind of a detective story. I am about halfway through, and I usually read a little bit before bed. I tend to read 10 or 15 minutes just to relax my brain.
Nice. So you said, I tend to read 10 or 15 minutes before bed. I tend to means that this is your usual habit, right? Not always, but that is what you normally do.
Exactly. When I say, I tend to read before bed, I mean, in general, that is my routine. For example, I tend to read on the train as well if I can get a seat.
And you also said, I am reading a crime novel at the moment, so that is our second useful phrase today. At the moment. It just means these days, right now in your life, not forever, just currently.
Yeah, like, at the moment I am reading a crime novel, but next month I might be reading science fiction. It is just what is happening in this period of time.
Okay, what about in general? Your reading habits. Do you read a lot or only sometimes?
I would say I read quite a lot. I have been getting into crime novels recently. That means I have started to really enjoy them, and now I read them more and more.
So when you say, I have been getting into crime novels, you mean you did not always love them, but these days, you are really starting to enjoy that kind of book. They are becoming your thing.
Yes, that is it. For example, a few years ago, I never read history books, but lately I have been getting into history. So now I pick up more history books too.
I like that. I have been getting into is a really natural phrase. Now, what about me? If I am honest, I start a lot of books, and I do not always finish them. My bookshelf is full of half-finished stories.
Oh, same here. I buy more books than I actually read. Sometimes I feel a little guilty, like the books are looking at me and saying, "Are you ever going to open us?"
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. So listeners, you are not alone if you do not finish every book you start. that is totally normal.
And it is a good topic to talk about in English when you read, where you read, and the kind of books you never finish.
So, today in this episode, we are going to stay with this idea of reading, how to describe your reading habits, what you are reading at the moment, and how to give your opinions and recommendations in natural English. You can just relax, listen to us, and pick up phrases you like.
And remember the little challenge. Listen out for page turner and think about which book I call a real page turner.
All right, we have talked a bit about when we read and what we are reading now. But to really talk about reading in English, we need some useful phrases.
So in the next part, I will help you with some natural expressions you can use to talk about your reading habits and your favorite books.
Yeah. Sarah, can you help us with some key expressions we can use to talk about our reading habits and favorite books?
Of course. Let us go into some really useful vocabulary in the next section.
So, in this part of the episode, we want to give you some really useful vocabulary for talking about your reading habits and your favorite books. Not a huge list, just a few super helpful phrases you can actually use.
Yeah, we will keep it simple. We will look at how often you read, the types of books you like, and some words to describe how a book feels to you. Like, is it exciting? Is it heavy? Is it easy?
Okay, nice. So, maybe we start with habits. How often you read. Can you share a few natural phrases that you actually use in your own life?
Sure. The first one is, I am trying to get back into reading. I am trying to get back into reading. This means, I used to read more before, but I stopped. Or I read less now and I want to make it a habit again.
Right, so it is like, it was a habit. It is not a habit now, and you want to restart it.
Exactly. For example, I could say, I am trying to get back into reading because I spent too much time on my phone last year.
Yeah, I feel that. My phone is like my #1 enemy for reading time.
Same here. Another little habit phrase I like is, I usually read before bed. Very simple, very natural. I usually read before bed. It tells people when you read and that it is part of your routine.
And when you say that, I can imagine the situation very clearly, right? Pillow, lamp, book.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it is true. I usually read before bed, even if it is just 10 minutes.
Okay, so we have a couple of habit phrases. Maybe now we move to book types. How can I say what kind of books I like in a simple, natural way?
One very common word you need is nonfiction. Nonfiction. That just means books about real things, real people, real facts, not stories that someone invented.
So like biographies, history books, self-help books, all of that is nonfiction.
Yes, exactly. For example, I could say, I mostly read nonfiction these days, especially psychology and self-help.
Nice. And on the other side, we have fiction, right? Stories, novels.
Yes, and this is actually a common mistake for learners. They sometimes say something like, I am into novel books. It sounds a bit strange in English.
Yeah, I think I have said something like that before. I read many kinds of books, but recently I am into novel books.
Right. So instead of novel books, we usually just say novels or fiction. So you could say, I read many kinds of books, but recently I am into novels. Or recently I am into fiction. Same idea, just more natural.
Got it. So avoid novel books and just say novels or fiction. That is much simpler.
Exactly. And for more specific types inside fiction, you will hear words like crime thriller or young adult novels or graphic novels, but those are all kinds of fiction.
Okay, so we have a couple of habit phrases and a basic word for book type, nonfiction, and also the idea of fiction and novels. Maybe now we talk about how a book feels, your reaction to the book. Ooh,
Yes, one really good expression is a page turner. A page turner. It means the book is so exciting or so interesting that you cannot stop reading. You keep turning the pages.
so what is the difference between page turner and just interesting?
Good question. Interesting is very general. A book can be interesting, but maybe you read it slowly, you stop, you think. A page turner is more about speed and excitement. You stay up late, you forget the time, you want to know what happens next.
Ah, okay. So page turner is like super engaging, very hard to put down.
Exactly. For example, I could say, that crime novel was a real page turner. I finished it in 2 days. That shows I read it really fast because I was hooked.
Hooked. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I know you wanted to do a little robot versus natural moment with a strange textbook sentence.
Yes, please. I love this part.
Okay, so here is the very robot-style sentence. Listen to this. I habitually peruse self-improvement literature in the evening.
Wow. That is so stiff, so formal. Habitually peruse self-improvement literature. It is not wrong, but nobody talks like that in a normal conversation.
Yeah, if I said that to my friend, they would probably laugh at me.
Exactly. So let us make it natural. We can use some of the phrases from this chapter. For example, I usually read self-help books in the evening, or I like to read self-help books before bed.
Right, so instead of habitually, you just say usually. Instead of peruse self-improvement literature, you say read self-help books.
Yes, shorter words, more everyday words. And the rhythm is easier for speaking. I usually read self-help books in the evening. That sounds like real life, not a textbook.
Okay, so before we move on, let me just quickly repeat a few of the most useful expressions from this chapter.
Yeah, just the really key ones.
So we had, I'm trying to get back into reading. That is great when you want to say you want to read more again. Then we had nonfiction for books about real things. And we had a page turner for a book that is so exciting you cannot stop reading.
And do not forget the small correction. Say novels or fiction, not novel books.
Yeah, that one is important too. Okay, now that we have some vocabulary, it is time to hear these phrases in a real conversation about our favorite books. Sarah, can you share a story about one of your favorite books and why you love it?
Sure, I would love to. I will tell a real story, and I will try to use many of these expressions so you can hear them in context.
So, Sarah, in the last part, you talked about genres and plots in a pretty clear way. Now, I want to go a bit deeper. Could you share, like, one or two of your real favorite books and talk about them the way you normally would with a friend? Not a textbook style, just natural English.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me think. One of my all-time favorites is a mystery novel. It is called Gone Girl. It is a thriller. So the genre is psychological thriller.
A psychological thriller. Nice. And how would you start if you wanted to explain it to someone who has never heard of it?
I would probably say something like, it is about a married couple who seem perfect at the beginning, but then the wife disappears and you slowly find out that things are not what they look like. So I am not giving spoilers, just the basic idea.
Nice. So listeners, did you hear how she started? She said, it is about a married couple who, that pattern, it is about a person who is super common and very natural.
Yeah, and I could also say, it tells the story of a married couple who look perfect, but actually have a very dark relationship. So it is about, or it tells the story of, those are really friendly ways to start.
Right. And compare that to something more stiff, like this book describes the life of a married couple. That is not wrong, but it sounds like a school essay, not a real conversation.
Exactly. In normal chat, we keep it short and simple. So instead of, this book describes the life of a woman who travels through time, I would just say, it is about a woman who travels through time. Or, it follows a woman who travels through time.
Yeah, it follows a woman who... I like that. That verb, follows, is really common for talking about stories. Like, it follows a guy who tries to start a new life in another country.
Right. And that is our first useful expression here. It follows a person who... It just means the story is mainly about this person, and we see what happens to them. So, for example, it follows a teenage boy who discovers he has magic powers.
Nice. Okay, so we have the start of the description. Can you tell us why you liked Gone Girl so much? Like, really honestly, as a reader.
Yeah. So, one thing I loved about it was the feeling that I never knew who to trust. The writer keeps changing your mind. Another reason I recommend it is, it was such a page-turner. I could not put it down. I just kept reading, chapter after chapter, because I really wanted to know the truth.
Okay, pause there. You used a really nice phrase, page turner. Can you explain that quickly?
Sure. A page-turner is a book that is so exciting, you always want to read the next page. You almost rush through it. For example, that crime novel was a real page-turner. I finished it in 2 days.
And you also said I could not put it down. That is another way to say I really wanted to keep reading, right?
Yeah. If I say I could not put it down, it means I did not want to stop reading. Like I stayed up too late because I just could not put it down. So, those two work together nicely. It was such a page-turner, I could not put it down.
Love it. And you used those nice sentence starters too. You said, one thing I loved about it was, and another reason I recommend it is, those are really useful at B2.
Jimmy, yeah. And they help you sound organized, even when you are just talking. So you can say, one thing I loved about it was the characters. They felt very real. Another reason I recommend it is the ending. It really made me think about how people behave in relationships.
Okay, so that is your successful reading story. You found a thriller, it was a page-turner, you could not put it down. Now, I want to share kind of the opposite. A reading fail.
Oh, I am curious now. What happened?
So, a few years ago, I decided to read a classic, a very famous, very serious novel in English. I will not say the exact title, but I thought it would be light reading, like kind of funny, kind of romantic, and actually it was dark and heavy and super slow.
So you expected something easy and fun, and you got the opposite.
Exactly. At first, I tried to be a good student. I told myself, come on, this is a classic, you should finish it. But I got completely lost after the first few chapters. There were so many characters and long descriptions. I kept falling asleep with the book open on my chest.
Yeah, I know that feeling so well, and honestly, it is really normal. So listen to the phrases Alex used. They are great for talking about a book that did not work for you. He said, I thought it would be light reading, but it was dark and heavy. He also said, I got completely lost after the first few chapters, and I kept falling asleep.
Yeah, and I want to stress, none of those are dramatic. They are just honest. You can say, I got completely lost after the first few chapters, when the story is confusing or the language is too hard. And I kept falling asleep when the book is boring or too slow for you.
Right. And you also showed a really nice connector pattern there. You started with, at first I tried to be a good student, but then I got completely lost. So this structure, at first, but then, is super helpful when you talk about your reading experience. For example, at first it was hard to get into, but then I started to enjoy it.
Yeah, that is a good one. And that phrase you just used, hard to get into, is also really natural. Can you explain it quickly?
Sure. If a book is hard to get into, it means the beginning is difficult or boring, so you do not feel interested at first. For example, the first 50 pages were hard to get into, but then it turned into a real page-turner.
Nice. So we have phrases for books we love and phrases for books we struggle with. Before we move on, let me just pull everything together for the listener.
Yeah, let us slow down and kind of wrap this part up.
So in this chapter, we each talked about a real book. We said the genre, gave a short, simple idea of the story, and then explained why we enjoyed it, or why it really did not work for us. You also heard patterns like, it is about a person who, and it follows a person who, plus those nice reasons like, one thing I loved about it was, and also some honest fail phrases like, I got completely lost after the first few chapters.
But just understanding these phrases is not enough. You have to actually say them yourself and try them with your own books, your own reading habits.
Exactly. So in the next part, we are going to guide you step by step. We will give you clear patterns that you can copy, and we will leave space for you to repeat out loud.
Yeah, I will give you simple, repeatable sentence frames so you can describe your own reading, your own favorite books, and even your reading fails. We will do it together, slowly.
Okay, now this part is for you, for your mouth, not just your ears. So, if you can, try to speak out loud with us, even if you whisper, even if no one can hear you. I'm going to ask you some questions about your reading life. Then I'll leave a pause and you answer. Do not worry about mistakes. Just try.
And I'll give you some easy patterns you can copy, or you can change them a little. Make them yours. If one sentence feels too long or too hard, just choose one small part you like and repeat that. It's all good practice.
Let's start with habits. So, first question, how often do you read these days? I'll say it again. How often do you read these days? Okay, your turn. Answer the question. 3, 2, 1. Speak now.
If you need an idea, you can say, these days I read on and off. One more time. These days I read on and off. That means sometimes you read, sometimes you don't. It's not regular. Try saying it with me. These days I read on and off.
Or maybe you want to start reading more. Then you can say, I'm trying to get back into reading. Listen once. I'm trying to get back into reading. Okay, now you. 3, 2, 1. Say it.
And if you read every night, you can say, I usually read before bed. Simple, right? I usually read before bed. Try it. I usually read before bed.
All right, choose one sentence that feels true for you. Maybe, these days I read on and off. Or, I'm trying to get back into reading. Or, I usually read before bed. Pick one. Got it in your head? Now say your sentence again. 3, 2, 1.
Nice. Okay, next habit question. Where do you usually read? I'll ask it slowly. Where do you usually read? Think of your place. On the train, on the bus, on the sofa, in bed, in a cafe, wherever.
I'll give you a pattern. You can say, I normally read, and then your place. For example, I normally read on the train, or I normally read at home on the sofa. Listen, I normally read at home on the sofa. Now you try. Start with, I normally read, mayo.
If you like cafes, you can say, I love reading in cafes. The new word here is cafes. It just means coffee shops, places where you can sit, drink coffee, maybe eat cake. So the sentence is, I love reading in cafes. Try it once with me. I love reading in cafes.
One more time. Answer for yourself. Where do you usually read? Use one of these. I normally read, plus your place. Or, I love reading in, plus your place. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Talk.
Good. Next question. What format do you prefer? That just means, what kind of book do you like? Paper book, ebook, audiobook? I'll ask you, what do you prefer? Paper books, ebooks, or audiobooks?
Here's a pattern. I prefer, and then your choice. For example, I prefer paper books, or I prefer ebooks, or I prefer audiobooks. Listen once. I prefer audiobooks. Okay, now you say, I prefer, and add your favorite.
If you like them all, you can say, I like all formats, but I usually read ebooks. The word formats just means types: paper, digital, audio. So again, I like all formats, but I usually read ebooks. Try that if it fits you.
Let's move to favorite books now. First question, what kind of books are you into at the moment? I'll say it again. What kind of books are you into at the moment?
Here's a useful frame. I've been getting into, and then the type. For example, I've been getting into mystery novels lately. The phrase getting into means starting to enjoy, starting to like. So again, I've been getting into mystery novels lately. Now you try. I've been getting into, plus your kind of book.
Or you can use, I'm really into, for example, I'm really into fantasy books right now. Listen once, I'm really into fantasy books right now. Okay, your turn. I'm really into, and your genre. 3, 2, 1.
Now think of one book you enjoyed. Just one. Not the best book ever. Just one you liked. I'll ask you, what's one book you really enjoyed recently? Again, what's one book you really enjoyed recently?
Use this frame. It's called, and then the title. Then, it's about, and a short idea. For example, it's called The Silent Patient. It's about a woman who stops speaking. Listen again. It's called The Silent Patient. It's about a woman who stops speaking. Now you try with your book. It's called, and it's about.
If you cannot remember the exact title, that's okay. You can just say, it's a book about, and then the topic. For example, it's a book about building better habits, or it's a book about a family during a war. Try that if the title is hard.
Next question, why did you like it? Think for a second. Why did you like that book?
Here's a nice pattern. One thing I loved about it was, and then your reason. For example, one thing I loved about it was the characters. Or, one thing I loved about it was the simple writing. Try one. One thing I loved about it was.
You can also say, I liked it because, and then a short reason. For example, I liked it because it was easy to read. Or, I liked it because it made me think. Okay, now give your reason. Start with, I liked it because.
Now let's do a little fun thing, the robot way and the natural way. Imagine someone asks, what kind of books are you into at the moment? And the robot answer is, recently I have consumed numerous literary works of the fantasy genre.
Yeah, that sounds very serious, very formal, like a robot at a book club. So let's make it natural. A friend would just say, recently I've been reading a lot of fantasy books. Listen again. Recently I've been reading a lot of fantasy books.
That's much better, much softer. Try the natural version with me. Ready? Recently, I've been reading a lot of fantasy books. One more time, maybe a bit faster. Recently, I've been reading a lot of fantasy books.
Okay. Now, your turn, but change fantasy books to your type. For example, recently I've been reading a lot of history books, or a lot of romance novels, or a lot of self-help books. So the pattern is, recently I've been reading a lot of, plus your type. 3, 2, 1, go.
If some of these patterns feel difficult, no problem. Just choose one or two that you like. Maybe, I'm trying to get back into reading, or I'm really into crime novels right now, or one thing I loved about it was the story. Keep those in your head. Use them again and again.
So, now you have some sentences to talk about your reading life. How often you read, where you read, what you like to read, and why you enjoy a book. Even if you only said them in your mind, that's still practice.
But what if someone says, "Hey, can you recommend a book?" Or, "What should I read next?" How can you say, "You should read this," in a natural, friendly way? And how can you say you did not like a book, but stay polite?
In the next part, we'll help you with that. We'll practice real phrases to recommend books, and also soft, honest ways to say, "It was not really for me, so stay with us." And get ready to talk about book recommendations. So, now let's imagine a real situation. A friend looks at you and says very casually, "Hey, what are you reading now?" Or, "Can you recommend a good book?"
Yeah, and in that moment, you want to sound natural, right? Not like a school essay, not too formal, but also not too direct or too rude.
Exactly. So in this part, we'll help you answer those questions in a friendly, safe way. I'll be the curious friend, and I'll ask Sarah about her book. You can copy her answers later and change the details for your own books.
Okay, sounds good. So, ask me like a friend.
All right. So, Sarah, what are you reading now? And would you recommend it?
Right now I'm reading a mystery novel. And yeah, I definitely recommend it if you like stories with a lot of secrets and twists. So listen to that pattern. I definitely recommend it if you like, and then add the type of story. For example, I definitely recommend it if you like fast, exciting stories. Or I definitely recommend it if you like strong characters.
Nice. That sounds really natural. And you used another useful one before that I want to highlight. You could also say, "It's perfect for people who," and then say, "the kind of reader."
Yeah, exactly. So for my book, I could say, "It's perfect for people who like a bit of darkness, but not too scary." Or, "It's perfect for people who enjoy slow, detailed stories." It's a nice way to match the book to the right person.
So, for you listening, try it in your head. Think of one book and say quietly or out loud, "It's perfect for people who," and finish the sentence. Maybe. "It's perfect for people who love history." Or, "It's perfect for people who are busy and just want short chapters."
And remember, you don't always want to say, "This book is amazing." Sometimes you like it, but there is a small problem. So a really helpful pattern is, "I'd recommend it, but," and then you add a little warning.
Right, that "but" is important. It protects you a little. Could you give an example with that?
Sure, I could say, "I'd recommend it, but it's a bit heavy." Here, a bit heavy is a soft way to say, it's serious, maybe emotional, maybe not very easy to read. Another example, "I'd recommend it, but it's quite long." So you are honest, but still positive.
Yeah, and sometimes you just do not really enjoy a book, right? But you still want to be polite. You don't want to say, "I hated it." So one really useful phrase is, "It's not really my thing."
Yeah, I love that one. "It's not really my thing" means, I didn't enjoy it very much, but I'm not attacking the book or the person who likes it. So I could say, that sci-fi book was not really my thing, but you might like it if you enjoy lots of technical details.
So if I say, it's not really my thing, that's a softer way to say, I did not like it. It's like kinder, more polite.
Exactly. And you can join it with a positive part. For example, it's not really my thing, but I can see why people like it. Or, it's not really my thing, but if you're into fantasy, you'll probably enjoy it.
That reminds me of a little fail story. A recommendation fail. So, once I recommended a very strange, very long novel to a friend. I said something like, you have to read this. It's the best book ever. You'll love it. I really oversold it.
Oh no. And what happened?
Well, he hated it. He stopped after maybe 50 pages, and I felt a bit embarrassed afterwards because I pushed it so hard. I was like, oh no, I made this big promise and it didn't work for him at all.
Yeah, that's awkward. So, to avoid that, there's another really useful pattern. It's not for everyone, but I really enjoyed it. This is great when a book is a little strange or special. You're saying, I loved it, but maybe you won't.
So that new expression, it's not for everyone, just means this book is kind of specific or unusual. Some people will love it, some people will not. For example, I could say, it's not for everyone, but I really enjoyed the unusual structure.
Yeah, or it's not for everyone, but I loved how slow and quiet it was. So you protect yourself. If your friend does not like it, well, you already warned them.
Another soft, safe pattern I like is, you might like it if you're into, and then you say the topic or style. Like, you might like it if you're into crime stories set in small towns. That way, you're not saying, you will love this, you're just opening a door.
Yeah, it's like an invitation. So, you might like it if you're into romance and travel. Or, you might like it if you're into business and self-help books. Very safe, very natural.
Okay, now let's turn this to you. Listening. I want you to personalize this. Think of one book that you often talk about. Maybe your number one favorite. I'll ask you some questions. You can answer in your head, or you can say it out loud if you want.
And I'll give you some little answer patterns you can copy. You just put your own book and your own reason inside the phrase.
All right, question 1. Is there a book you often recommend to friends? Maybe it's the same one again and again. Think of it now.
Okay, now try this pattern. I usually recommend, plus the book name, because, and then your reason. For example, I usually recommend The Hobbit because it's fun and not too difficult. Your turn. I usually recommend because...
Nice. Second question. How would you describe that book to a friend? In a simple way?
You could say, it's perfect for people who, and then say the kind of person. For example, it's perfect for people who love adventure. Or, it's perfect for people who don't read very often. So try it now. It's perfect for people who...
Good. Last question. Would you recommend that book to someone who is learning English?
Here are 2 options you can use. If yes, you can say, it's great for learners because the language is clear. Or, more generally, it's great for learners because... And then your reason. If no, you could say, it's not really for learners, but you might like it later.
So choose one of those and say it quietly now. It's great for learners because, or, it's not really for learners, but, and finish the sentence with your own idea.
And remember, you can mix these patterns. For example, I usually recommend this book because it's great for learners, but it's not for everyone. Or, I'd recommend it, but it's a bit heavy. Just play with them in your own way.
So now you have some natural ways to give your opinion and to recommend books without too much pressure. You can be honest, but still kind.
We're almost at the end of today's episode. In the next part, we'll quickly review the most useful phrases and then give you a small challenge you can do after you stop listening.
Yeah, just a short summary and a simple homework-style task, so you can really use these patterns with your own favorite books. So, we are almost at the end of this episode of the Natural English Podcast.
Yeah, it went fast, right? We talked about a lot of things around reading today.
We did. And do you remember the little listening challenge from the beginning? I asked you to listen for a special word, a word I used to describe Sarah's book.
Right, that word was page turner. A page turner is a book that is so exciting, you just keep turning the pages and you do not want to stop reading.
Exactly. So if you say it is a real page turner, you mean? It is really hard to put the book down.
Okay, so before we say goodbye, let us just pull out a few useful phrases from today.
Yeah, just a top 3. First one. For habits, I have been getting into something. That means, recently I started to enjoy it more. For example, I have been getting into fantasy novels lately.
And second, for describing the content of a book, it is about. Super simple, but very useful. For example, it is about a woman who moves to a small town and starts over.
Nice. And the third one, for giving your opinion. I would definitely recommend it if, and then you add the kind of person. For example, I would definitely recommend it if you are into crime stories.
So those 3 together are really powerful. I have been getting into, it is about, and I would definitely recommend it if.
Now, before we give you a little challenge, Sarah, could you talk about 1 or 2 common mistakes learners make when they talk about books?
Sure. I think one big thing is sounding way too formal. Like, my favorite literature is the work of. Or, this story contains numerous metaphors. That sounds like a school essay, not a relaxed conversation.
Yeah, it feels a bit heavy.
Exactly. Instead, go for simple chunks, like, it is about, it follows a, or, it was a bit hard to get into at first, but then I really enjoyed it. Those are natural and clear.
So, do not worry about big fancy words. Just choose a few simple patterns that fit your real reading life.
And you do not need to remember everything from this episode. Really. Just pick maybe 2 or 3 phrases you like and try to use them this week.
Okay, let us give you your real-life challenge before we finish.
You have 2 options. Option 1, talk to a friend, a classmate, or your teacher in English. Tell them about one book you are reading now or a book you read recently, and try to use at least 1 phrase from this episode.
Or option 2, if you do not have anyone to talk to in English, that is okay. You can write. In your notebook, write a few sentences using these frames. I have been getting into, then, it is about, and finally, I would recommend it if.
To help you, I will give a super short model. So for example, I have been getting into mystery novels lately. It is about a small-town detective who solves old cold cases. I would recommend it if you like slow, thoughtful stories.
Nice and simple.
Yeah, you can keep it that short. Just a few clear sentences is enough for good practice.
So, as we close, I just want to say thank you for spending this time with us. And also, thank you for choosing to practice speaking and listening today.
Yes, thank you so much. And maybe next time you go to a bookshop or you are scrolling an online store, just notice the English book titles or the short descriptions. They can be a little mini lesson.
Remember, even a few minutes of reading in English can help you grow. And you can always replay this episode of the Natural English Podcast to practice the phrases again.
Keep reading, keep listening, and be kind to yourself while you learn.
All right, that is it from us today. This was the Natural English Podcast with Alex
and Sarah. Take care, and we will talk to you in a future episode. Bye for now.